afternoon. I am Diana Agustin from BSED2B Gen Sci, and for today's lesson, I'm going to discuss chromosomes, genes, and allele. So let's start from chromosomes. In this video, we are going to look at what chromosomes are and what their role is. So a chromosome is an entire chain of DNA along with a group of stabilizing protein. Each of that gives the structures this tight packaging system means that 2 meters worth of human DNA can fit into a tiny cell that is only 2 micrometers wide. Chromosomes usually occur in pairs, except for gametes, which are the egg cells and sperm cells. But the number of chromosomes changes depending upon species. For example, we humans have 23 pairs, but elephants have 28 pairs and carrot plants have 9 pairs. So let's back to the structure of chromosomes. If you were to unravel a chromosome, you would see that it is made up of thread, sort of like a spoon of yarn. These threads are called chromatids. They are usually tangled in this fashion when present in a regular active cell. Zoom in again and you will see that fiber is a collection of protein orbs called histones, which are wrapped with a string-like structure. Zoom in on and that string and you will find that this is a chain of DNA. It is extremely long, millions of nucleotides long, and often contains hundreds of genes along its length. In this image, we are looking at a chromosome and in its condensed yarn-like form. But chromosomes are only packaged tightly like this when a cell is reproducing. This structure helps with durability as the cell is splitting in two. For most of a cell's life, however, a chromosome exists in a loose, noodle-like structure along with other chromosomes safe inside the nucleus or a centerpiece of a cell. Here is the photograph of an entire set of human chromosomes taken from a cell, right as it was getting ready to reproduce. Your genome, the entire collection of genes that help make you who you are written across 23 pairs of chromosomes. That is 46 altogether, with a very few exceptions. Each cell in your body contains its own full copy of your chromosomes, your entire genetic code. For example, eyeball cells use only the eyeball cell genes. The rest are turned off. Liver cells only use liver cell genes, and so on. One member of each pair of your chromosomes came from your mother, the other came from your father. So if you were to examine the two individuals of a pair, you would find that for the most part, both contain the exact same genes. So to sum things up, a chromosome is an entire chain of DNA along with a group of stabilizing proteins. Humans typically have 23 pairs of chromosomes in each of their cells, and that is 46 altogether. In your body, one member of each pair came from your father and the other pair came from your mother. For most of a cell's life, a chromosome exists in a loose, noodle-like structure. Chromosomes are copied and then condensed like spools of yarn for durability when a cell prepares to reproduce by splitting in two. So moving on to the next topic, which is gene. So what exactly a gene? A gene is a special stretch of DNA and not an entire strand of DNA. Just this segment that codes for something. Genes also make proteins. Those proteins that then interact with each other and all sorts of other chemicals inside the body to build things like freckles, eye pigments, and mood-altering hormones. So a single strand of DNA contains thousands of genes or unique protein recipes. Humans have roughly 20,000 altogether. Some genes are small, only about 300 letters long. Others are well over 1 million, and the length and sequence of a gene determine the size and shape of a protein it builds. The size and shape of the protein determine the functions that protein will have inside the body. Hemoglobin, for example, is a protein structure found in red blood cells. Its unique shape and size allowed it to capture oxygen molecules when blood flows near the lungs and then release them later when blood flows near oxygen-starved tissues. Different creatures have different genes, which is ultimately why their bodies look and function differently. But one of the many reasons scientists believe all life on Earth is related is that the basic DNA code, the language of A's, C's, T's, and G's is pretty much the same for all living things, or what we know the ACTG. And now we are done in explaining chromosomes and genes, so we are now going to tackle about alleles. We know that Gregor Mendel is considered as the father of genetics. He was famous for studying pea plants. As he studied pea plants, he noticed that for different characteristics like seed shape, there will be different forms, and these characteristics became known as traits. Traits are characteristics that can be passed from one generation to another, and a gene is a portion of DNA that contains the genetic code for the trait. So as we mentioned earlier, genes are located on chromosomes, and humans have 23 pairs of chromosomes, 46 altogether. So for each trait, you get some of the information from your mom and some from your dad. As a result, you may inherit different forms of the same trait. These different forms are alleles. So let's go back to Mendel and his pea plants. Notice that for each trait, there are different forms. The color of the flower can be white or purple. The pea plant can be tall or short. For all 7 traits, each trait has a different form, and these will be examples of alleles. These different forms of the same genes. So let's look at an analogy for you to better understand what allele is. So let's say there is a gene in a species of frog that codes for the frog's eye color. We will call it the eye color gene. The eye color gene, an allele of the eye color gene that codes for yellow eyes. He has the yellow allele of the eye color gene. This body here has a different allele, a different version of the eye color gene, and he has the red allele of the eye color gene. So we know that an allele is an alternative version of a specific gene. So to sum the relationship between chromosomes, genes, and allele is that always remember that chromosomes comes in pair of 2. Humans has 46 chromosomes, 23 from your mother and 23 from your father. And the number of chromosomes varies from each species as well as the composition of them. Genes are specific sections of the DNA that are responsible for specific things such as your hair color. Alleles are the different variation of these genes. Your hair color genes, so you may have ghost black allele from your father and a blonde from your mother. Remember that genes are the section of DNA while alleles are the variation of these genes. So this is all for today. I hope you gained some knowledge and information about our topic for today, which are chromosomes, genes, and alleles. So for your activity, I will post it right after this video.